Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of my Academy of the Arts editing project. In the first part I showed you the full video of the edit that I did, but now I'm going to go through the timeline on Avid and I'm going to go through all the different shots that I chose for this edit, and I'll explain why I chose the shots, and yeah, let's get right to it. Alright, so we're going to go through this timeline and I'll go through all the shots and explain why I chose what I chose and why I cut the way I cut, basically. Okay, so what we start off with here is an establishing shot, and it gives you an idea of what the scene is and or what it's going to be about, and also the space of the scene. And it's very, very important to get an idea of what the scene is, because like we start off with, we see the victim's before and after picture, and it gives you an idea of what this scene's going to be about. And as for the space, well, we see Detective Elliot coming in, and we see him walking as the camera pans, and it gives you an idea of how big the space is, and it's really important to know where each character is at present time, unless your intention is to confuse the audience. So we see Elliot walking, and then once we get an idea of what the space is like, we then can cut in closer, like here, as he says his lines. And now here we have Detective John's dialogue, where he's speaking to Elliot about something. So if we were to keep the original audio clip that's from this main clip here, his dialogue would be faint, so we don't want that. So basically we took better audio from his own clip, and we put it under here. We cut to that, and it sounds very seamless and you don't really notice it. So as he's talking, we then have the medium shot of him, which I still want to keep an idea of what the space is going to be like, but we get closer and closer as the dialogue goes on. So then we have the shot of Odafin speaking, and still establishing the space. We have an over-the-shoulder shot of Odafin, and then we cut to Detective Olivia, where she's about to give a point. Now we could cut to her speaking the line, but I decided to cut to this part where she gives her own, like she gives her own view on the situation. So I decided to do that instead. And then, now that we've established most of the space, I decided to use a medium close-up of Detective John. And we can see that he's giving a witty remark, and it's kind of fun. It's a funny remark, and and it's cool to use the medium close-up for greater effect. And then we can cut in a little bit early to the over-the-shoulder shot, and sometimes it's good to vary up your cuts. You don't want to do a cut where it's like a character says one dialogue and then you cut to another character has this dialogue. Sometimes it's a good idea to cut while he's speaking to another character, because you want to get an idea of how they're reacting to this. So it's usually a good idea to do that. It's good to vary up your cuts. Then we cut to Ice-T's dialogue, and as I mentioned in my last video, it was his dialogue on the original clip was very low, so I had to replace it with this source clip here, and that solved the problem, and yeah, it just works. Now, again, we have the medium close-up of the older detective, and it's good to have a consistency with your shots. So then we cut to the over-the-shoulder shot, and this is a longer take, so we can, since we're hearing her point out, and when she finishes, I then cut to the male detective who, well, it's Elliot, but we cut in and we see him talking to about it, like he's saying case closed, we could go home, and then we cut to the doctor, who's Dr. George, and he's basically like he interjects and says it's like, but it wasn't an accident, and I like doing it in this stage way. You can do it in another way to a certain effect. It really depends on the character. Don't really know too much about him, but I decided to do this way just for experimentation. And right here we have the little sound clip of Olivia speaking, and basically she's saying what, and it was very tricky to get it right there, but it's cool to have like a certain reaction to what he's saying. We then cut to Olivia as he's speaking that Lindsay Elding was poisoned, and we see her reaction to that. Like once he says that, he then shows us the presentation of it, and now here we have John giving a joke about who killed him, the Smurfs, and I used the medium close-up again for some funny effect. To add to that, I have Elliot's reaction to that joke, and we see him reacting to the joke as well as listening, and I still have the scientist's presentation as it's going on. So as we hear him out, we have the insert shot of the presentation, and it's really important to as he's speaking, it's good to show like what he's talking about. And then we cut to Ice-T, who gives a remark about that, and then we see Dr. George like giving like a remark to that as well. And I like to keep the medium shot because he's still speaking about the mushrooms, and he's sort of like referring to everyone else. Then as he's giving his line, I cut in early to see Elliot's reaction, because he's hearing information about like a toxin that makes you hot, sweaty, and sexually aroused, and we see his reaction to that, and he's processing the information, and we see like what he says next. Hot, wet, explains why Lindsay takes her clothes off. That's pretty much what he says. And after he says those lines, I decided to cut to a close-up of Olivia, because now she's starting to feel a little bit sorry for the victim, and again, it's good to have an emotional impact by having a close-up, since we get an idea of how she's feeling. And we hear Detective John as he's asking how did she drown, and we're still on this shot here, and then we cut to George, who is basically hearing what John has to say. Then he explains again about the toxin. I still have the medium shot of the presentation, so he's still giving information. So then, after hearing how much roughness that the victim got through while being killed, we cut to this close-up again, and it's good for emotional impact to have the close-up. So now that that's taken care of, we have the over-the-shoulder shot of Elliot, and he's basically saying that one of Lindsay's enemies slipped her a deadly cocktail of shrooms, and now he asks when. So then we cut to the close-up of George. Now, because we're now given a new lead on like where to search next, it's good to. I decided to use the close-up to and to like for a great effect of like now we have a discovery of where we might be heading next. So then while he's speaking, we cut to Olivia searching through the victim's phone, and it's a good idea to sort of to see how like what she's doing next. So like she's now she's processing the information, and she's searching through the records for any sort of time. Had we cut in a little earlier, or at least later, we wouldn't have seen her do that. It's cool to see the process that she's going through. So now she's found the new lead, and at the very end we have an insert shot of the Wishing Time Foundation, which is where the detectives will go next. And that basically finishes the edit of this video. Anyway, that is the last part of the Academy of the Arts edit project. Thanks for watching, and take care.